Suitors began to visit their home, seeking Amarachi's hand in marriage. To Ada, it was a natural progression of life, but to Emeka, it was a threat he wasn't ready to face. As the days went by, Ada tried to set boundaries with Emeka, but he just ignored her and continued to treat Amarachi like his own personal possession. Ada felt like she was losing everything and decided to act fast. She started by encouraging Amarachi to try new things without her father. One Saturday morning, Ada assigned Amarachi up for a cooking class. She presented it with excitement at breakfast. Amarachi, wouldn't it be fun to learn how to bake pastries with other kids of your age? She said. Amarachi looked uncertain, her gaze shifting immediately to her father. But Daddy can teach me, she replied, her voice soft. I think it will be fun to make new friends, Ada insisted, and Daddy will be here waiting for you when you are done. Emeka frowned. I don't see why she has to go. She's happy learning at home, and she's busy with school already. Why add more to her plate? He said. Ada's patience was wearing thin. Emeka, it's important for her to have experiences outside of this house. She's growing up. It's just a few hours on Saturday. Ada counted. And she loved pastries, don't you, Amarachi? Amarachi nodded shyly, her gaze darting between her parents. I think it will be fun, she said. Emeka sighed, and after a tense silence, he reluctantly agreed. Fine, but only if I can drop her off and pick her up. That's if she's willing to go. Ada bit her tongue, unwilling to start another argument. As long as Amarachi could go, she was willing to compromise. Amarachi eventually agreed to attend, though she clung to Emeka's arms as they dropped her off. Ada watched from the car window as Amarachi hesitated at the entrance, then slowly walked inside. It felt like a small victory, and Ada hoped this was the start of something new, a way to loosen the grip of their overly close bond. When they picked her up, Amarachi was brimming with excitement, holding a tray of cupcakes she had decorated herself. Look what I made, Daddy, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Emeka hugged her, but his expression was strained. That night, Ada confronted him. What's wrong with you, Emeka? Can't you see how she's happy? She asked. Emeka's voice was low but firm. She's drifting away, Ada, and you are pushing her. Ada stared at him, disbelief washing over her. She's not drifting away. She's growing up. Why can't you see the difference? Emeka said nothing, turning away. For the first time, Ada realized just how deep his fear ran. It wasn't just about losing Amarachi, it was about losing control. The realization left her both angry and heartbroken. She knew the battle for balance in their family was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. The cooking class sparked something new in Amarachi. She began to ask for more opportunities to try activities with her peers. Ada encouraged her at every step, carefully steering her towards independence. Yet, Emeka's unease grew with each passing day. His resistance was strong, and Amarachi's attachment to him ran deep. Ada knew this was just the beginning of a long battle to find balance in their family, and she wasn't sure how much long she could fight it alone. By the time Amarachi would graduate from the university, her independence blossomed. Yet her connection to her father remained deeply rooted. Suitors began to visit their home, seeking Amarachi's hand in marriage. To Ada, it was a natural progression of life, but to Emeka, it was a threat he wasn't ready to face. When the first suitor arrived, a polite young man named Chinedu, Emeka's reaction shocked everyone. He barely answered the young man's greeting, his demeanor cold and unwelcoming. After Chinedu left, Amarachi looked at her father expectantly, but Emeka simply said, "He's not good enough for you." Ada intervened later that evening. "You can't dismiss everyone, Emeka. Amarachi needs to make her own choices." "She's too young," Emeka retorted. "She doesn't need to rush into marriage." "She's 25," Ada countered, her voice firm. "She's not a child anymore." "I know, but you know young men of nowadays. All they're after is my daughter's beauty and my money," he said, refusing to budge. Each suitor that followed met the same fate, with Emeka finding fault in them all. Amarachi, confused and torn, leaned heavily on her father's opinion. Over time, she began to echo his sentiments, rejecting suitors with little consideration. Ada watched helplessly as her daughter's future narrowed before her eyes. Then one evening, Amarachi made a shocking declaration as her mother continued to disturb her about settling down. "I don't want any of them," Amarachi said, her eyes filled with conviction. "I love my father and I want to remain with him," she declared, her voice resolute. Ada's heart stopped. "What did you just say?" she whispered, hoping she had misheard. "You want to remain with your father? Are you going to marry your father?" she demanded. "I love my father," Amarachi repeated, "and no one can replace him in my heart," she declared firmly. The word hit Ada like a blow. She turned to Emeka, hoping to see shock or concern, but his face remained calm, almost satisfied. "She doesn't mean it like that," he said, laughing nervously. "We don't need to rush anything," placing a reassuring hand on Amarachi's shoulder. That night, Ada lay awake, her mind racing. This wasn't normal. Amarachi's attachment to her father had gone beyond anything she could have imagined. Emeka's overprotectiveness was no longer endearing. It was destructive, and he refused to see reasons with her. She decided to hold her peace, as everything was already making her blood pressure to rise. But as time went on, it became clear that Amarachi was serious. She refused to entertain any talk of marriage, insisting that no one could ever replace her father. Ada decided to report the matter to her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law was surprised at the revelation and blamed Ada for not coming to tell her all this while. "No wonder," she said. "I knew it would result to this, from the way they go about like two lovebirds." "So Emeka want to marry his daughter, eh? Abomination, not while I'm still alive. Go home and you would hear from me," she said sternly. Ada thanked her and left. The next day, Emeka's mother called him, giving him an ultimatum to allow his daughter get married, or she would go to their kinsmen and report that he is now married to his daughter. He tried to explain himself, but his mother hung the call on him. Emeka revered his mother with so much respect and know what she is capable of doing. So to avoid embarrassment that would follow his mother's action, he allowed one of the men that refused to give up on Amarachi to come with his kinsmen, and they did a small traditional marriage, and Amarachi left to her husband's house. Ada was very happy that at last her daughter can now start a new life without her father. But little did she know that the bond between father and daughter is yet to be broken. As Amarachi moved to her husband James' house, she began to show him attitude. She would be on phone conversation with her father for hours, refusing to attend to her marital duties. Her father would come to check up on her during the weekend, buying her gifts or her favorite cake, while her husband would sit by the corner, watching them chat and laugh. And once her father is gone, she would return to her room. James endured everything, hoping that she would change as time goes on. Since Amarachi refused to do any of the house chores or cook, James employed a maid named Adaku, and one day he returned home from work hungry and exhausted and met that there was nothing for him to eat, and he hardly eat outside, so he became angry. Why is food not ready and where is Adaku? He demanded calmly. I sent her to deliver a message to my father, Amarachi replied. How can you send her when you know she haven't cooked and you know I didn't eat anything since morning? James asked. She's supposed to be back by now. I'm sure it's the traffic, Amarachi replied. Even if she's back by now, is it now that she's supposed to start cooking? I don't like the way you don't care about anyone else apart from your father. Everything is your father, James said out of anger. It's my father we are talking about here, James. How dare you talk about my father in that manner? Amarachi replied. The argument escalated, and before James would know what is happening, Amarachi packed her bag and left for her father's house. When she got home, she told her parents that James insulted her father, and she cannot stand it. Her mother doubted her claims, knowing her daughter fully well. But Emeka believed his daughter, and when James got to their house the next day to settle the matter, Emeka refused to hear his own side of the story and returned the bride price he paid to him, dissolving their marriage. Ada watched helplessly, and James returned home feeling heartbroken. Amarachi remained in her father's house, refusing to entertain any talk about marriage, and by the time she turned 30, it was done on her father. He was not getting any younger, and desperation for a grandchild flooded his mind. He began to search for help with Ada. They spoke to priests, counselors, and even elders in their community. And one elder, an old woman named Mama Eke, revered for her wisdom in resolving family issues, listened carefully to their story. This is not just about Amarachi, Mama Eke said. It's about the foundation you built as parents. Emeka, you put your daughter on a pedestal so high that no one else could reach her. And Ada, you allowed it to continue for too long, Mama Eke said. Emeka hung his head in shame. What can we do now? He asked. Mama Eke's advice was simple but difficult. You must reset roles, she said. Amarachi needs to see you as her father and not her everything. It will be hard, but it is necessary. They appreciated her and left. The journey to healing was not easy. Emeka began to set boundaries, letting Ada take on more responsibilities with Amarachi. At first, Amarachi resisted, crying and accusing her mother of trying to steal her father away. But slowly she began to adapt. One subplot that emerged during this time was Amarachi growing interest in storytelling. She had always been fascinated by the tales her grandmother told her as a child, and now she started weaving her own narratives. Ada encouraged this passion, and Amarachi enrolled herself in a creative writing class at the city center. Amarachi's writing became an outlet for her emotions and a way to process her evolving relationship with her parents. Her stories often revolved around themes of identity, family, and self-discovery, mirroring her own struggles. Meanwhile, Emeka also faced his own challenges. At work, His colleagues began noticing his distracted demeanor, and a close friend and mentor, Uncle Ebuka, pulled him aside one afternoon. Emeka, you are carrying too much on your shoulders, he said. You need to let go and trust that Amarachi can survive without you holding her hand every step of the way. Emeka took those words to heart. He began spending more time with his wife Ada, rekindling their bond. They started attending couples retreats and even took up gardening together. Their small garden became a metaphor for their relationship, which required patience, care, and a willingness to let things grow naturally. As Samarachi navigated her mid-30s, she joined a local art club where she discovered a talent for painting. Her works became a reflection of her emotions and thoughts, providing her with an outlet to express herself. Slowly, she grew more independent, relying less on her father and more on her own sense of self. Her painting of a young girl standing at the edge of a vast, colorful forest became the centerpiece of a local exhibition and drew attention to her artistic talents. However, another victory arose when one of Amarachi's stories gained recognition. A local magazine published her short story, and she was invited to speak at a community event. This experience boosted her confidence and introduced her to a world of possibilities beyond her home. It also brought a young journalist named Chike into her life. Chike admired her creativity and strong spirit, and their shared love for storytelling sparked a deep connection. Their relationship wasn't without its challenges. Chike had to earn Amarachi's trust and navigate the complex bond she shared with her father. One day, Chike approached Emeka, nervous but determined. Sir, I love your daughter and I want to marry her, but I also want your blessing, he stated clearly. Emeka studied the young man carefully before breaking into a warm smile. You have my blessing, Chike, he said, but remember she's not just my daughter. She's her own person. Treat her with the respect and love she deserves. Chike nodded and promised to love and cherish Amarachi with all his heart. Years later, as Amarachi stood on her wedding day, dressed in stunning white gown and shining veil, she turned to her parent and smiled. Thank you for everything, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Emeka and Ada held each other's hands tightly, tears in their eyes. They had almost lost their daughter to their mistakes, but love and determination had brought them back together. And as Amarachi walked down the Asai, Emeka knew he had finally let her go, not as his little girl, but as a woman ready to embrace her own life. I hope you enjoyed this story that has so many moral lessons. Comment what you have learned below. Please support the channel by liking the video, share to your friends and family, and please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more. Thanks and God bless you. See you in the other videos.